Hey YouTube, this is Magician34, and recently I had somebody suggest to me the possibility of what about a water deck? But not just your conventional water deck, but one that used like Warrior of Atlantis to accelerate, and then the draw power of Moray, Pot of Avarice, but also took advantage of things like Deep Sea Diva and so on. And I was thinking about that and thinking about Frog, and I thought surely there's some way you can put all this together. I kind of figured the deck might not be like super competitive, but I thought I'm going to try to run this together and see what happens, and also make it kind of inexpensive at the same time. So it was kind of a challenge, but I fiddled with it, and I think I've got something here that I would be confident enough to play at a locals. I don't know if I would take it to a regionals necessarily, but it might be worth a try actually, because it's pretty good. And on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the deck the way I built it, and then if a card is a little more on the expensive side, nothing here is terribly expensive, but if it is, I'll tell you something you can run in its place, or if you just really have to have it. First off, Treeborn Frog, he's got a common and a regular rare printing, so pretty easy to get there. Just 2 copies is fine. We have other ways to send him to the grave, and this deck's already got quite a few cards in it. It's actually running 43. You'll almost never see me run a deck with that many cards, but it's got a lot of draw power, so it's compensated for. 2 frogs are quite useful. We do run some monarchs. We're still running 3 copies of Fishborg Blaster because you really do need to hit him in order to take advantage of him, so he's necessary at 3. We're running 3 copies of Swap Frog. The Swap Frogs are pretty much just to get to the Treeborn Frogs. The only target for Swap Frog in the deck actually to send to the grave is your 2 Treeborn Frogs and then the 3 Swap Frogs themselves. Don't be afraid to swap to just be a special summon or to send another swap out of the deck to the grave once you've sent your 2 Treeborns. This deck thrives on having lots of stuff in the grave. And doesn't hurt to have another special summon. We're running 3 copies of Deep Sea Diva. And she too is very easy to get a hold of and quite a good card, 2-star tuner. We're running Mermaid Archer, basically because she can't get bottomless, but she also likes to play with Frog and become a 2,000 point hitter really easily, so she's not a very bad top deck. Good thing to moray back into your deck so that you can be sure to hit it with Diva. We're running 3 copies of Kai's the Shadow Monarch. Yes, he's not the cheapest thing you ever found, but he was in gold, he was in the structure deck, he's not too hard to get, he's not that expensive. I seriously suggest getting a hold of him and running him. He's a lot better than some of his nearest counterparts like Zaborg. So put the effort into getting this guy. He's an excellent card, he's going to be good in the long run too. Pretty much the best Monarch. 2 copies of Rise of the Storm Monarch. This guy's probably a little bit harder to get, but not much. Because he too is in gold. If you're having trouble getting this guy, then I suggest he's a little more replaceable. You can probably get away with running Thestalos. Very similar. We're also running 1 copy of Mobius. This is partially to feed Moray and things like that. He also plays with Fishborg Blaster pretty well. Very easy to get. Good solid card these days when everybody's setting so many cards. 1 copy of Darkness. He's a pretty easy to get promo. Definitely very necessary. Gives you tribute fodder and so on and so forth. Saves you from getting beaten down since you don't run a lot of back rows. 3 copies of Battle Fader. He was a tin promo. Pretty easy to get. It's another staple card, so I advise you get it anyway. We're running 1 copy of Kadaris. Yes, we do have a Legendary Ocean in this deck. This guy basically is just to take advantage of Legendary Ocean. Be very careful how you play this guy in Legendary Ocean because you don't want Legendary Ocean interfering with your frogs. So summon this guy first to make sure they don't warn him or something like that. Then play the Ocean out of your hand and activate his effect. Okay? Play it well. Played well, it's a good card because you can send the Ocean and send 2 of your opponent's cards to the grave. And he can't be bottomless, of course, because he's 1400. So quite good, and you can recycle him back into your deck with Pot of Avarice and so on. And we're running 2 copies of Warrior of Atlantis, basically because he's a 1900 point stick, which is not too bad. Water, of course. But you can pitch him to go search for the Legendary Ocean, which thins your deck and fattens up your graveyard with water monsters. So, quite good. And you can always cycle him back into your deck. And like I say, it doesn't hurt that he's a beat stick. That's all your monsters. We're running just 2 copies of a Legendary Ocean. Remember, play this carefully. You don't want it to get in the way of your frog. And if you have extra copies of it in your hand, don't worry. Don't be afraid to pitch that Warrior of Atlantis to go ahead and get this. Because you can always feed this to Fishborg Blaster. That's the beauty of Fishborg Blaster and water decks that use him, is there's no such thing as a dead draw. There's just extra Fishborg Blaster special summons in your hand, which really turn into extra Formula Synchrons. Alright, we have 3 copies of Moray of Greed, short print common but not too hard to get a hold of. Send 2 waters from your hand to your deck, draw 3. Pretty straightforward, you shouldn't have any trouble meeting its requirements. Basically the idea is to just power through. And we are running 3 copies of Pot of Avarice. So like I say, we like to pump the waters into the grave. They get in there pretty easily, they accelerate themselves because they search other ones and they get in the grave really quickly. So lots of ways to take advantage of Pot of Avarice and pump the deck through. Try to use this actually to pump your deck back full of your monarchs, put your synchros back in your extra deck, things like that. That's what this card is for in addition to the draw. Also, if it's running Treeborn for all gods are good, it's going to run enemy controller. It's a free brain control during your standby phase, basically. No brainer. Good defense too. Monster Reborn, pretty self-explanatory. Dark Hole, 1 for 1. That's for getting your Treeborns and your Fishborgs, obviously. Foolish Burial, same reason. Giant Trunade, so they don't mess you up. And also 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon for a similar reason. And you might have to use those Typhoons to blow up your own Legendary Ocean. But try to avoid situations like that. Alright. In the extra deck, we have Shooting Star Dragon. Now, obviously, his only rarity is not just the Ghost Rare. He's a tin promo and a pretty easy to get tin promo. I recommend that you run him. You don't have to, but I recommend it. If not, replace with the 8-star, 6 or even 7-star of your choice. But I do like running him. He's pretty solid. Good card. 2 copies of Stardust Dragon. He actually has 2 tin promo releases. He's pretty easy to get a hold of. And he's a good card to have just forever. So get him if you don't already have him. Alright, Scrap Dragon is a very important card, very good to have, but he's a little on the pricey side. And if it's out of your league to get him, I recommend get him as soon as you can, but in the meantime you can run Red Dragon Arcfiend. It's a good card for this deck. You can try Dark End Dragon, or I'm sorry, not Dark End Dragon, but Infernity Doom. But either way, get the one that comes off of Kai's. Alright, Colossal Fighter. He's pretty good, he's easy to get. Reason we're running him is because you can get him off of Formula Synchron during your opponent's turn. Staple card, cheap. Black Rose Dragon, it has a tin promo also. This is a card I emphasize you get if you don't already have. It's staple and everything pretty much, so definitely pick it up. Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, it's a very important card to have and own. You only need 1, try to get it, it's kind of expensive though. If you can't get it, then just a 6-star of your choice. Another 6-star target to hit would be good. But this guy's very important. Not only in this deck, but in pretty much every deck these days. We're running Gaia the Force of Earth. Just another 6-star target you can go for. He's the best 6-star for beating down right now with generic materials anyway. So he's an important one to run. And very easy to get a hold of. Basically 2600 is important because he runs over things with 2500 like Stardust Dragon. Also running Flamvel Urquiza. He's 1 more 6-star. Trample is a nice option. He's very cheap, very easy to get a hold of. No reason not to have him. Or get him on the cheap. This guy's worth like maybe a few bucks at most. If you don't like this guy, you don't think you're going to need much trampling in your own metagame in your own area, you don't think you're going to have to worry about frogs or Rykos or anything like that, you can't just run another copy of Gaia or something like that. Magical Android, she's pretty easy to get these days. She's a good 5-star target. You could run even X-Saber Wayne. He won't really do very much in this deck, except maybe get Warrior of Atlantis out of your hand. But basically just a good solid 5-star target. And against opponents with a lot of dark cards, she's a good 5-star. She's really not that expensive anymore. Allied Justice Catastor, I strongly recommend getting this 5-star, but if you can't get him, another good solid 5-star synchro will work. Armory Arm, he's pretty important to the deck because you can sync for 4 in order to help sync up to other things, because this deck relies heavily on Formula Synchron just like other Frog decks. An important one to get. If you don't get it, there's not really a replacement for it, unfortunately. But just try to get him, and if not, struggle through, maybe pick up an extra 7-star monster you can run. Something like maybe Urbellum or Scrap Arcfiend. And last but not least, 2 copies of Formula Synchron. This is pretty much a must-have for the deck. One of the few really valuable cards that you have to have. He's running a decent price right now considering he's a regular rare. but it's nothing astronomical. A little bit of clever trading and economy, and you should be able to pick him up. He's just such a useful card, just period, anyway. He may not always be at 3. Someday he may get limited, but in the meantime, he's at 3. He's very worthy of abuse, and returning him to your extra deck with Pot of Avarice is a great way to just run your opponent over with sheer card advantage. So, anyway, that's the deck. And in the meantime, it is 2 days as of when I post this till the end of my 1,000 subscriber contest, so go check it out, subscribe. Even if I don't have the 1,000 subscribers by the 23rd of April, 2011. So if you're seeing this a year later, there is no new contest. It's April 23rd, 2011. But go check it out if you're still in time. Because even if I don't reach 1,000 subscribers, I am going to still give away a prize. Despite what I said in the video, I'm still going to give it away because I'm just such a swell guy. So anyway, until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.